Arjun never thought much about love. At 29, his life revolved around his laptop, coffee, and meeting project deadlines. He was a software engineer who believed relationships would happen naturally when the time was right. No rush, no pressure. Just let life unfold. His friends kept telling him he was missing out. But Arjun liked his peaceful, uncomplicated existence. Everything changed on a warm Saturday evening at his best friend's wedding. The venue was decorated with lights and flowers, music filled the air, and people laughed and danced everywhere. Arjun was standing near the dessert table, trying to decide between chocolate cake and gulab jamun, when he heard the most genuine laugh he'd ever heard. He turned around and saw her. She was talking to a group of aunties, her eyes bright with joy as she shared some story that had everyone around her smiling. She wore a simple blue suit, nothing too fancy. But something about her presence made her stand out in the crowd. Arjun found himself staring, completely forgetting about the desserts. Their eyes met across the hall for just a second, and she smiled before turning back to her conversation. That smile did something strange to his heart. He spent the next hour trying to find the courage to talk to her, watching her interact with different people, noticing how comfortable she seemed in her own skin. Finally, during dinner, fate brought them to the same table. She sat down 2 chairs away from him, and Arjun's friend Vikram, who noticed everything, immediately started introductions. Her name was Priya, and she was the bride's cousin visiting from another city. She worked as a school teacher and had come alone to the wedding. The conversation started simply enough. They talked about the wedding, the food, the music. But then somehow, they drifted into deeper topics. Priya told him about her love for teaching and how her students made her laugh every single day. Arjun shared his frustration with his current project and his dream of maybe starting his own company someday. Hours passed, like minutes. They discovered they both loved old Hindi songs, preferred chai over coffee despite Arjun's earlier claim, and had the same strange habit of eating ice cream in winter. Priya had this way of listening that made Arjun feel like everything he said actually mattered. She asked questions that showed she was really paying attention, not just waiting for her turn to speak. As the night grew late and guests started leaving, they found themselves walking in the wedding venue's garden. Still talking, the fairy lights above them created a magical atmosphere, and for the first time in years, Arjun felt completely present in a moment, not thinking about tomorrow's work, not worried about pending emails, just there with her. Before they parted, Arjun did something unlike him. He asked for her number. His hands were actually shaking a little as he pulled out his phone. Priya looked at him for a long moment, and he could see something like hesitation in her eyes, but then she smiled and gave him her number, typing it carefully into his phone. What Arjun didn't know was that Priya had been hurt before. 2 years ago, she'd dated someone who kept her in a gray area for months, never committing, never letting go. She'd wasted a year of her life on someone who only wanted her when it was convenient. After that ended, she'd promised herself she wouldn't settle for anything less than real commitment. She wasn't looking for casual dating or temporary connections. She wanted something solid, something permanent, but there was something different about Arjun. Maybe it was the way he actually listened, or how his smile reached his eyes, or the genuine interest he showed in her stories. She decided to take a chance, just one more time. However, she silently promised herself that at the first sign of uncertainty or games, she would walk away without looking back. As Arjun drove home that night, he couldn't stop smiling. He kept replaying their conversations in his head, remembering the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. He thought maybe this could be fun, something light and easy to brighten up his routine life. He wasn't thinking about serious relationships or future plans. He just wanted to get to know her better, see where things naturally went. Priya lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. She wanted to feel hopeful, but years of disappointment had taught her to be careful. She liked Arjun, really liked him, but she knew from experience that initial chemistry didn't always mean someone was ready for real commitment. She decided she would be open but cautious, present but protected. Time would tell if he was different from the others. Neither of them realized they were standing at the beginning of something beautiful but complicated, each carrying different hopes and fears into whatever was about to unfold between them. The first text came the next morning. Arjun sent a simple message thanking Priya for the wonderful conversation and asking if she'd like to meet for coffee before she went back to her city. Priya felt her heart skip when she saw his name on her screen. She made herself wait 10 minutes before replying, not wanting to seem too eager. They decided to meet that afternoon at a small cafe near her hotel. That coffee date lasted 4 hours. They talked about their childhoods, their families, their embarrassing school memories. Arjun learned that Priya had wanted to be a dancer once but chose teaching because it felt more practical. Priya discovered that Arjun was afraid of dogs despite being 6 feet tall. They laughed until their stomachs hurt. And when it was time for Priya to catch her train, both felt disappointed. The texting started that evening. Good morning messages, random thoughts throughout the day, good night wishes before bed. Within 2 weeks, they were talking on the phone every night. Priya would finish her dinner, settle into bed, and call Arjun. He'd be at his desk, pretending to work while actually just waiting for her call. They'd talk about everything and nothing, their conversations flowing naturally from serious topics to silly jokes. A month later, Priya came back to visit. Officially to see her cousin but really to see Arjun. He took her to his favorite spots in the city. They ate street food, watched a movie, walked through parks, and took countless photos. Arjun felt himself growing more attached, looking forward to her messages, missing her voice when they didn't talk. But whenever his mind drifted to labels or definitions, he'd push those thoughts away. 3 months into whatever they were doing, things felt comfortable and happy. Arjun had started calling her just to hear about her day. Priya had begun sharing things with him she rarely told anyone, her insecurities, her fears, her dreams. They'd established routines, specific times when they knew they'd talk, shows they'd watch together over video call. Priya introduced him to her close friends during one of her visits. They all went out for dinner, and her friends clearly approved of Arjun. He was charming, funny, and treated Priya with obvious affection. After he left, her friends bombarded her with questions. Is he your boyfriend? When did this start? How serious is it? Priya realized she didn't have clear answers to any of those questions. That night, she tried asking Arjun casually about how he felt, where he saw things going. He responded with the same warmth as always, telling her how much he enjoyed their time together, how special she was to him. But he carefully avoided any concrete statements about their future or what they meant to each other. Priya noticed but didn't push, telling herself to be patient. But patience was getting harder. Her family started asking about him because she mentioned him so often. Her mother wanted to know if this was serious, if she should start thinking about meeting his family. Priya didn't know what to tell them. She was falling in love with Arjun, deeply and completely. But she had no idea if he felt the same way. One evening, they were sitting in her favorite park, the same one where they'd had some of their best conversations. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Priya gathered all her courage and decided to ask the question that had been weighing on her heart. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. Arjun, what are we doing here? What is this between us? The question hung in the air between them. Arjun felt his chest tighten. He cared about Priya, genuinely cared about her in a way he'd never felt before. But the question scared him. Defining things meant responsibility, commitment, promises. What if he wasn't ready? What if he messed it up? He took a deep breath and chose his words carefully. I really like spending time with you. You make me happy in ways I didn't know I needed. Can we just see where this goes naturally? He thought he was being honest, giving her the truth about his feelings while keeping things open and pressure-free. But Priya felt her heart sink. She'd heard similar words before from someone else, and they'd led to months of confusion and pain. She forced herself to smile, not wanting to seem demanding or desperate. I understand, she said quietly. But her voice carried a sadness Arjun didn't quite catch. Inside, Priya was building walls. She'd let herself be vulnerable, opened her heart, shared her deepest parts, And now she was facing the familiar uncertainty she'd promised herself she'd never accept again. She loved Arjun, but she was starting to realize that love alone wasn't enough if only one person was ready to build something real. The shift was subtle at first. Priya's messages, once instant, started coming hours later. Her morning texts became less frequent. When Arjun called, she'd talk. But the conversations felt shorter, less deep. She started saying she was tired more often, ending calls earlier than usual. Arjun noticed something was different, but he convinced himself she was probably just busy with work. The school term was demanding. She'd mentioned that before. 2 weeks passed with this new distance between them. Arjun tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in his stomach, but he missed the way things used to be. He missed her random voice messages throughout the day, her excited calls about small things that made her happy. He started texting more, trying to bridge whatever gap was forming, but her responses stayed polite and brief. Then came the dinner party that changed everything. Their mutual friend was celebrating a promotion, and both Arjun and Priya were invited. It was the first time they'd see each other in person after things started feeling weird between them. Priya almost canceled but decided against it, not wanting to make things more awkward. The evening started fine. They sat together, talked with other friends, shared food. To everyone else, they looked like a happy couple, but both of them could feel the tension underneath, the unspoken words hanging between them. Arjun kept trying to make Priya laugh like before, and she'd smile, but it didn't reach her eyes the way it used to. Then someone made a joke. One of their friends, slightly drunk and very cheerful, pointed at them and announced loudly, "You two are definitely next to get married. I'm calling it now." Everyone at the table laughed and cheered, raising their glasses. It was meant to be fun, harmless teasing among friends. But Arjun's face changed. Just for a second, he looked uncomfortable, almost panicked. He quickly forced a laugh and changed the subject, making a joke about something completely different. The moment passed for everyone else, but Priya saw it. She saw the fear in his eyes, the way he desperately wanted to move away from that topic. Humiliation washed over her like cold water. She excused herself to the restroom and stood there for 10 minutes, trying to compose herself. Her hands gripped the sink as she looked at her reflection. What was she doing? Why was she putting herself through this again? She'd promised herself she wouldn't be anyone's maybe, anyone's option, anyone's casual thing. Yet here she was, in the exact situation she'd sworn to avoid. When she came back to the table, she was quieter. She stayed for another hour out of politeness. But inside, she was done. After the party, as everyone was leaving, Arjun walked her to her car. The parking lot was dimly lit and mostly empty. This was the moment Priya had been dreading but knew was necessary. "I can't keep doing this," she said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Arjun looked confused. "Doing what? What's wrong?" Priya took a deep breath. "This. Us. Whatever this is, I need to know you see a future with me, Arjun. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm not asking for a ring or a date. But I need to know I'm not wasting my time. I need to know that what we have is going somewhere." Arjun felt trapped. Why was she pushing him like this? Why couldn't they just enjoy what they had without all this pressure? Why does everything have to be so serious all the time? We're happy together, aren't we? Why can't we just enjoy the present without worrying about the future? His words cut through Priya like a knife. Because I'm 27 years old, and I've already wasted enough time on people who wanted to keep their options open. I want someone who's sure about me. I want someone who doesn't flinch when people joke about our future. I want forever, Arjun. Not just right now. And if you can't give me that, or at least the possibility of that, then we're not looking for the same thing. Arjun stood there, not knowing what to say. Part of him wanted to tell her he'd try, that he'd figure it out. But another part, the scared part, stayed silent. Priya waited for a moment, hoping he'd say something. Anything that would give her reason to stay. When he remained quiet, she felt her last hope crumble. "Goodbye, Arjun," she whispered, and walked to her car. He watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the night. He told himself it was for the best, that they wanted different things, that letting her go was the right decision. But as he sat in his own car, the emptiness hit him. The silence felt suffocating. For the first time, he realized what he might have just lost. The first week without Priya was strange. Arjun kept reaching for his phone to text her, then remembering he couldn't. He'd see something funny and think about sending it to her, then stop himself. At night, the silence was the worst. He'd gotten so used to their bedtime calls that going to sleep without hearing her voice felt wrong. By the second week, he tried to return to his old life. He focused on work, spent time with friends, even tried watching new shows. But nothing felt right anymore. Food tasted bland. Jokes weren't funny. His apartment, which he'd always loved, felt too quiet and empty. He found himself staring at old photos of them together, remembering the way she laughed, the way she listened, the way she made ordinary moments feel special. His friends noticed something was wrong. Arjun, who was usually talkative and engaged, seemed distant. During a cricket match they were watching together, his best friend Vikram noticed Arjun wasn't even paying attention to the game. He was just staring at his phone, scrolling through old messages. That evening, after everyone else had left, Vikram sat down next to Arjun. "Talk to me. What's going on?" At first, Arjun tried to brush it off, saying he was just tired from work, but Vikram wasn't buying it. "This is about Priya, isn't it? What happened?" Everything came pouring out. The conversation in the parking lot, how she'd asked for commitment, how he'd frozen up, how he'd let her walk away. Vikram listened without interrupting, and when Arjun finished, he asked a simple question. "Do you love her?" Arjun opened his mouth to answer but couldn't. Did he love her? He missed her terribly. Thought about her constantly. Felt miserable without her. "I don't know," he finally said. "I care about her a lot. But love? That's such a big word." "Okay. Different question then," Vikram said. "Can you imagine your life without her?" That question hit Arjun hard. He thought about his future. Years ahead, in every image that came to mind, Priya was there, coming home to tell her about his day, planning vacations together, growing old with someone who really knew him. Without her, everything looked gray and empty. "What are you so afraid of?" Vikram asked gently. Arjun struggled to put it into words. Finally, the truth emerged. His parents had divorced when he was 12. He'd watched their marriage fall apart, seen his mother cry, heard his father's angry words. He'd promised himself he'd never put anyone through that. What if he committed to Priya and then failed her? What if he wasn't good enough? What if he repeated his parents' mistakes? "So you'd rather lose her for sure than risk trying?" Vikram asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Arjun had no answer. He'd been so focused on avoiding potential pain that he'd guaranteed actual pain instead. He'd protected himself right into misery. Meanwhile, across the city, Priya was dealing with her own heartbreak. Her sister found her crying one night. Old photos of her and Arjun spread across her bed. "I thought he was different," Priya said through tears. "I really thought this time would be different." Her sister sat next to her, holding her hand. "Did you love him?" Priya nodded, unable to speak. "Then maybe you should have been more patient. Not everyone processes feelings at the same speed. Some people need more time to work through their fears." Priya wiped her eyes. "But I can't just wait forever, hoping he'll figure it out. I need someone who's sure about me, not someone who needs to be convinced." Her sister nodded. "That's fair. But there's a difference between someone who's not interested and someone who's scared. From everything you've told me, Arjun sounds scared, not uninterested." That conversation stayed with Priya. Had she been too demanding? Too rigid in her expectations? But then she'd remember that look on his face at the dinner party. The panic. When someone mentioned marriage, she'd remember all the times she'd tried to talk about the future and he'd changed the subject. Maybe giving him time wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe some people just aren't meant to be together. no matter how much they care about each other. 3 weeks after their breakup, both Arjun and Priya were learning painful lessons. Arjun realized that avoiding commitment doesn't protect you from pain, it just guarantees loneliness. Priya understood that sometimes loving someone means accepting their timeline, but that doesn't mean sacrificing your own needs and worth. They were both miserable, both missing each other, both wondering if they'd made a terrible mistake. But neither knew how to bridge the gap between what was and what could be. It was a Saturday morning when the rain started. Heavy drops that turned the city gray and washed the streets clean. Priya was sitting by her window, watching the rain and drinking chai, when she heard a knock on her door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her hair was in a messy bun, she was wearing old, comfortable clothes, and she definitely wasn't prepared for visitors. When she opened the door, her breath caught. Arjun stood there, completely soaked from the rain. His hair was dripping, his shirt stuck to him, and he was holding a black notebook tightly against his chest. They stared at each other for a long moment, years' worth of emotions passing between them in silence. "Can I show you something?" His voice was shaking, either from cold or nervousness, maybe both. Priya's first instinct was to protect herself, to close the door and guard her healing heart. But something in his eyes stopped her. She'd never seen him look this vulnerable, this raw. She stepped aside and let him in. He stood in her living room, dripping water on the floor, still clutching that notebook. "I've been writing," he said, "every day since you left, trying to understand myself, trying to figure out why I was so scared." He held out the notebook to her. "Will you read it?" Priya took the notebook with trembling hands. She sat down on her couch, and Arjun remained standing, watching her nervously as she opened it. The pages were filled with his handwriting, messy in some places, where emotion had clearly taken over. She started reading. The first entry was from the night they'd broken up. He'd written about the emptiness he felt driving home, how wrong it felt to let her go, then entries about his childhood, about watching his parents' marriage collapse, about the promises he'd made to himself as a scared 12-year-old boy. He'd written about his fears of not being good enough, of repeating cycles, of failing the people he loved. But then the entries changed. He wrote about memories with Priya, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, how she listened like everything he said mattered, the peace he felt just being near her. He wrote about realizing he was miserable without her, about understanding that he'd been so busy protecting himself from potential pain that he'd caused actual pain instead. The last entry was from that morning. It simply said, "I'm not afraid of failing anymore. I'm afraid of not trying. I'm afraid of a life without her. Today, I choose courage over fear." Priya looked up, tears streaming down her face. Arjun knelt down in front of her, his eyes red. "I've been such an idiot," he said, his voice breaking. "I was so scared of repeating my parents' mistakes that I didn't realize I was making my own. Priya, I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't mess up, or that I'll never be scared again. But I can promise that I'm choosing you. Every single day. Starting right now." He took her hands in his. "Not for a chance. Not to see where things go. For forever. You wanted someone who's sure about you? I'm sure. You wanted someone who doesn't flinch at the thought of a future together? I want that future. With you. Only you." Priya couldn't speak. All the walls she'd built around her heart were crumbling. "How do I know you mean it? How do I know you won't get scared again and run away?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I've already done the running, and it was the worst 3 weeks of my life," Arjun said. "Being without you hurt more than any fear I was trying to avoid. I love you, Priya. I should have said it months ago, but I was too scared to admit it even to myself. But I'm saying it now. I love you, and I want to build a life with you." Fresh tears fell from Priya's eyes. "I don't need perfect, Arjun. I never did. I just needed to know you were willing to try. Really try. I needed to know I wasn't alone in this." She pulled him closer. "I love you too. I've loved you for so long, and it hurts so much thinking you didn't feel the same way. I'm all in," he said firmly. "If you'll still have me, If you can forgive me for being such a coward." Priya cupped his face in her hands. "You're not a coward. You were scared, and that's human. But you faced your fear, and that's what matters." She leaned down and kissed him, and in that kiss was forgiveness, hope, and promise. They spent the rest of that rainy day talking. Really talking. Arjun explained his fears in detail, and Priya shared her past hurts. They made promises to communicate better, to be patient with each other's healing, to build their forever, one day at a time. It wasn't magical thinking that everything would be easy now, but they both understood something important. Real love isn't about perfect people finding each other. It's about imperfect people choosing each other. Again and again. 6 months later, they stood at the same wedding venue where they'd first met. The lights were strung up just like before, and their families and friends surrounded them. Vikram was Arjun's best man, and Priya's sister stood beside her. As they exchanged vows, Arjun promised to choose courage over fear every day. Priya promised to be patient with their growth while never settling for less than they both deserved. They'd both learned something valuable. Arjun learned that true courage isn't the absence of fear but acting despite it. That commitment isn't a trap, but a gift you give to someone you love. Priya learned that asking for what you deserve isn't demanding. That real strength is knowing your worth while also extending grace to others. Together, they learned that forever isn't something you demand or delay, it's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And they were ready to build it together,